What is up guys, Andy Forrest, the Demon Runner here. Welcome back to another video, and today I'm giving you guys my thoughts on the Hoka Clifton 9 after 100 miles. So when this running shoe landed on my doorstep, I was absolutely delighted to finally test out a Clifton model. I was so excited, heard so many good reviews, and I absolutely got the hype after a few runs. But as time has gone on, my opinion has definitely changed, and we have to talk about this midsole right here. We'll cover that later in the video. As with all 100-mile videos, we'll be talking about the wear and tear of the shoe, how I've been using it, and then of course will I continue to use it moving forwards. And as I said, we'll touch on my thoughts on this midsole later in the video. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, and of course please do consider subscribing to the channel for weekly running content. Let's dive in to the wear and tear. So after 100 miles you don't really want to be seeing any form of wear and tear, and that is definitely the case with this shoe, which surprised me because obviously I've run in a fair few Hokas in the past, and a lot of the exposed midsole on the bottom can certainly shed like snakeskin. I'm thinking the Mach 4 that I tested, the Rincons, they all started to shed, and it looked really bad, but it didn't affect performance in the slightest. This one hasn't done that, so it's really, really good to see. We'll start with the upper. It's holding up really well, and this was a massive standout feature for me when I tested the shoe. It was so comfortable, and still is really comfortable to slip your foot in this shoe and just kind of even just walking around in it. It is such a wonderful shoe in terms of the fit and the feel. Midsole thoughts coming up shortly, but of course, as you can see here on the midsole, very minimal sort of creases and crinkles. Not that you would expect too many these days, but it's holding up really, really well. The outsole, as I said, really impressed with the outsole. I do run on some tarmac, but also some buffed out fire track trails quite a lot of the time, and this has had a good mix of the two terrains, and yeah, it's just holding up really well. This area in particular here, I guess I don't really land here, but even on like the Mach 4 and the Rincon, I have found that all of the shoe can really, really shed. The rubber as well still has literally like full tread on it. There's no areas that are wearing thin at the moment, so that's really good. So in terms of the wear and tear, I can see why people talk about this shoe lasting a long time. In terms of the build quality and everything, it looks to be holding up super. So let's talk about how I've been using this shoe. It's very much a case of easy and moderate miles, zone 1 and zone 2. I've also done a long run in it, a 90-minute long run at zone 2 effort, moderate effort. So that's really where I've been keeping this thing reserved for. I have done some strides at the end of my run in it to pick up the pace. I've not particularly found it to be a good shoe for speed, naturally. I kind of feel like some daily trainers can kind of cover that basis well. This one, I've done 2 or 3 runs with strides in it, and it's kind of something or nothing really. It does the job, but it's not a particularly lively shoe. It very much is built for comfort, and that's exactly why I have used it purely for zone 1 and zone 2 running. Now when I started out, I found that it was much more of an easy day shoe, and I was really, really enjoying it. But I noticed what I loved about it was when I was mixing it in with my other sort of, not daily trainers, I'm going to call them like more recovery day shoes, easy day plodders. The weight on this thing is much more favourable. In my UK size 13, a lot of those are 350 grams and above. This is 330, I think. So it is a good 20 grams lighter. And I just kind of some days wanted to go for that purely because not only did it feel comfortable, but it was a more lightweight package, a little bit less heavy on the foot, and I could just glide along a little bit nicer. So that's why I've gravitated towards this quite a lot. And that's why out of the batch of shoes that I tested out in the summer, this thing has got to 100 miles first. Not that it's all been a fantastic journey, but it's definitely a shoe I've gravitated towards a lot. Towards the end of this sort of testing in terms of getting up to 100 miles, very much more zone 2 moderate miles I've been putting in this shoe. And I'm not particularly sure why, because I wouldn't say it necessarily excels in that, and that does come down to the foam. But that has been where I've been putting a lot more miles, and that's kind of come off the back of the long run I did. I was like, okay, this thing definitely can go up to zone 2, pick up the pace a little bit, stay just below that first aerobic threshold, LT1. That it kind of works LT1 and sort of like sub there. So as I said, zone 1 and zone 2. And since then, it's been definitely had more moderate miles than easy, but overall that's kind of where it's been used. Nothing more, nothing less, and a few strides here and there. So let's get on to the question, will I use this shoe moving forward? The answer is yes, but Yes, but is the generic answer I'm going to give. I'll explain why now, and it comes down a little bit to this foam and a little bit to something else. The something else is I've got and picked up a fair few shoes during summer, so I really want to kind of push some of those up to 100 miles. There's a few that I've really honed in on that I have a bit of a soft spot for. The Cumulus 25, I'm really enjoying that shoe. The On Cloud Stratus 3, I'm really enjoying that shoe. There's a few that I want to really sort of like push up now. So this one might just get put to one side for a little bit whilst I get some of my more favourite shoes that are really working in my rotation well up to 100 miles. But then I will come back to it. But, and there is a but, it's the foam. I don't want to get into a big debate about this, but I feel like in the Mach 4 that I had, the shoe was light enough so that the foam... Okay, let's rewind, let's start again. The foam is a bit dead. And the shoe is a little bit less responsive than it was in the beginning. So I know what this foam is all about. I think it's a supercritical EVA. I know it's an EVA foam. I think it's supercritical. And I know they updated it from previous versions, and it is enjoyable. It's very comfortable, but I do very much feel like it's a plodder. And this is why I don't understand why I'm gravitating towards it for Zone 2 runs. It must be just because it's lightweight, because when I get out there and get going, I just don't get any responsiveness from it. Now, definition of responsiveness for me, when you land, what does the shoe give you when you pop off? What response does it give you? Is it bouncy? Does it propel you forward? And I just don't think this shoe does. And the foam generally is a flatter foam. It gives you 10 out of 10 for comfort, but very much like 3 or 4 out of 10 for responsiveness. There's a lot of heavier shoes that I've got in my rotation that are far more responsive than this thing. And I know that because I've tested plenty of Hokas in the past, in particular the Rincons and the Mach 4s that I've tested. Again, very similar, using the EVA blend that they use in here. I know this has been updated from previous versions, but I feel like with the Rincon and the Mach 4, they could kind of get away with it because the shoe in general was lighter. So I feel like because there was less weight on your foot, that it didn't kind of hold you back as much, and you didn't necessarily notice the flatness of the foam because there was a bit less of it. Now there's more of it and a bigger slab in this shoe. For me, as I said, first time in the Cliftons, I'm noticing it a little bit more. And I know this foam divides opinion, because if you read the comments in a lot of my previous Hoka videos and future Hoka videos and on other people's Hoka videos, a load of people say, yeah, Cliftons are the bee's knees. I love the foam. And other people are like, oh man, the foam that they use is so outdated, man. When are they? I'm not testing another Hoka or running in another Hoka until they sort out their midsole foam. And I get both sides of the coin. The comfort levels in this thing are through the roof, and that is effectively what keeps drawing me back. That compared to the lightweight nature that it is compared to some of my other shoes. But I just don't feel like I get a ton out of this shoe in terms of feedback, responsiveness. It's just not really that much of an enjoyable thing to run in when you're trying to go a little bit faster than easy pace. Now overall, I do feel like the DNA of this shoe is incredible. Like the setup, the way my foot feels in the shoe, everything about it is super comfortable. And I've got to be really careful now because I've recorded this section 2 or 3 times and I'm waffling way too much. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I feel like effectively the midsole is just a little bit too flat, and there are other shoes in my rotation, as I've just labelled. Asics Gel Cumulus 25, what a shoe. Midsole is beautiful. On Cloud Stratus 3, again, love the midsole. Saucony Triumph 21, again, a brilliant shoe. Even like the Puma Magnify Nitro 2, I haven't put that many miles in it, but I love the midsole in it. There's just... What I'm trying to say is the midsole is probably for me one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. As long as you can get a relatively decent upper going on a shoe, it's the midsole that can often make it or break it, especially for me anyway. And they've absolutely nailed the upper on this shoe. The comfort back here, everything when you slip your foot in, it's brilliant. The weight of this shoe is fantastic. That's what sets it apart. But it's just, this foam is just a little bit too flat. So as I've probably mentioned already, what I'm hoping to see in future versions is this PIBA-based midsole introduced. That would be a real game changer, I think, and hopefully we'll see that in future versions. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the Clifton 9 after 100 miles. I appreciate I probably sounded a little bit negative about it, a little bit like the speed video I did the other day. I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent, and it's really important to share these 100-mile update videos because the first impressions are always really exciting. It's kind of me testing out a shoe for the first time, and I love it. It's great to do those sorts of videos and give you some instant feedback on the shoes. But I guess over time it's more important to give you long-term feedback. And yeah, my opinion has definitely changed on it. Although, being completely honest with you, I know I'll end up gravitating towards back towards it when I've got some other shoes up there, just because the comfort levels and the weight in this shoe do save it. But the midsole being the way it is just a little bit sad really, and it very much will be reserved for those easy Zone 1 and Zone 2 miles. In terms of other Hokas, I do actually have the Hoka Mach X in for testing. I haven't watched any videos on that shoe. Not that I didn't want to, but Pro Director very kindly sent me the shoe for testing, so that video will probably come out next week. And I'll be honest with you, I'm glad I haven't watched any videos because it'd be good to get my foot into that one. I have no idea if that has the PIBA foam in it. I hope it does. I'm going to do some research as soon as I've finished recording this video and have a look and check out the midsole compound. I know there's a plate in there, so it'll be really interesting to see how that one stacks up. But yeah, hopefully we'll see a bit of an update in future versions to the Clifton for a bit of a livelier midsole. That would be good to see. So as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Hoka Clifton 9. Please do drop them in the comments below. From the speed video of the day, it was great to hear so many of you putting comments down there about how many miles you've got in your Speed 3s and sharing your opinions. Some of you got like 600 kilometers, 1,000. Yeah, it was brilliant to read your sort of feedback. So it'd be great to hear from you guys how many miles you've got in your Cliftons. Did they go dead quite soon for you, or did you manage to get a ton of miles out of them? Please do drop that in the comments below. Share your thoughts with everyone. It will be great to read them down there. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course, do consider subscribing to the channel for weekly running content. I'll see you in the next one. Until then.